You've written quite a bit of few books, and I think it is interesting as we tell your story that we naturally progress to talking a little bit more about the tortoise specifically in "There's a Tortoise in My Hair" because it is a fiction book. The main character's name is Cameron, but this is the story of Calvin, right? For the most part, yeah. There's a quote in the book that says, "The tortoise, a constant sense of where I was going in life." What does the tortoise represent to you personally?
Tortoise represents, um, it represents change. It represents evolution. It represents awareness. It represents that for the longest time I was inhibited by my own uh, lack of self-confidence that was stifling and was breathtaking because I had no self-confidence. It wasn't until eighth grade that I could tie my own shoes. True story. So every which way I turned uh, in my early growing up, no. So the tortoise and the tortoise represented because the tortoise is a slow, but it usually wins the race. And that was another thing. If I'm being compared to a tortoise in my hair, and I was almost smart enough to realize that if that's the case, and my father said there's a tortoise in your hair, knowing that the tortoise wins the race in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So I could win the race. So tortoise represented hope. It represented don't give up. It represented a lot of good things. And the negativity of not having the self confidence or having the support systems. Back in the day, parents. I have two sisters. My parents, and they were much younger, and my parents were busy. Once I hit 7 years old, I had two sisters, and they're busy with them, so I had to fend for myself, and there wasn't much help back then. A lot of people don't realize that my world back then consisted of the World Book Encyclopedia. This is a comedic element. 12 books. 12 books was my world, and that was the whole world in 12 books. Are you kidding me? And that was my world, Jeff. This I laugh at this because this is more powerful, than the all the computers that put a man on the moon, back in '69. So there was no support. So the tortoise represents in hope and realization, and lifting up of your soul and your spirit, and your belief systems and stuff. So it's a heavy metaphor.
Well, it's a metaphor that was built out of negativity. The first seed of it was your dad, derogatorily saying that you had a tortoise in your hair. Maybe that was the way you wore your haircut, or the size of your head, or the fact that you were just slow to do a whole lot of stuff, or a combination of all of those. But you turned it into something dramatically positive, and I think that that is remarkable. Do you think everyone carries some version of that throughout their life?
I believe so strongly that everybody has that tortoise in their hair, and I also believe, and we didn't touch about this a lot, the spiritual side of me. And I think every one of us has a spiritual component and element. Problem is, we're all so busy in our worlds, and we're busy sitting on a subway with a cell phone. We're busy at a traffic light with a cell phone. We're all so busy that we don't take the time, to smell coffee kind of thing. But if you did, and if something happened along the way, so my spiritual beginning with seeing, that bottle in front of my grandfather, that bottle of water, that then took me on such a wonderful spiritual journey of awakening and of awareness, things happening.